Welcome to your awakening. Please stay calm as your reality is adjusted.
Too slow. Please stay calm as you're waiting for the internet to catch up so that you can click the post share link. Oh dear. It's been especially slow this evening. Yes, welcome back, folks. Welcome, greetings. I will sort of get in gear in 1 second. I was trying to remember to share the post round before we started, and Google was just slacking. And where's all my screens gone? That one. Yeah, we can stop the screen share now so you don't have to stare at VLC player. Shut that down. Camera? Yeah, camera working again. Right, Ray. Sorry about that. I was very distracted. We were chatting while we were waiting and listening to Raconteurs News, listening to Jason and Paul chatting with Annie. And I caught most of it. I was a little bit distracted, so I couldn't, while I was setting stuff up and everything, I couldn't listen to everything, but I did hear most of it. And I'll go back and listen through it again when I get the chance so I can hear it properly all the way through. Type in the chat box just so that everybody knows we're on now. Yeah, we are on now. Did I share it? Yes, I did. And I clicked all that. Right, okay, maybe we can actually get some semblance of consistency now to what I'm usually doing. Started at approximately half an hour after when I was supposedly normally starting at 8:30, but I wanted to listen to what the guys were saying and give them a chance to finish their chat, their interview with Annie, so that hopefully we're not crossing over. And it gets annoying if people who like to watch the live broadcast as it's broadcast rather than coming back and watching the video afterwards, then yeah, it's annoying when things that you like to watch cross over like that. So yeah, anyway, welcome back again. Another episode, broadcast edition, show, whatever you want to call it, of Sol Excalibre on this moon day evening, star date 19th of the 11th, 2018. Is that no, 19. That might become relevant again in a bit as I start ranting. Hasn't it been an interesting weekend in so many different ways? But for here in the UK, yes, it's been quite an interesting weekend. I noticed as well, just before we started, I had a thumbs down. It's like, way, got the thumbs down back again. After they'd given me a reprieve for a couple of episodes of 0 thumbs down on the last 2 episodes, you see, and I pointed it out last week, I think, and now they've got the thumbs down this week. Maybe they come waiting for it to start and saw that it wasn't running, and they thought, oh, you're supposed to start 8:30. I'm going to dislike it because you didn't start on time. So this is not corporate media. If you want that kind of conformity, please go look at the corporate media. And this is not corporate media. If you think it is, you're in the wrong place. Welcome to everyone in the chat room. Thanks for hanging on, guys. And it's good to see. I know a lot of you were in the Raconteurs News chat as well. Lots of Tathro, hello. And the Dots, artist formerly known as a non-violent extremist. Hello, mate. Blazing Stars, hello. And Dave Iron, hello. Queer Louise, hello. You got your password sorted then, I take it. Dean Yates, hello, mate. A new being, hello. Richard Kinzit, hello. And Super Leads, hello. I don't know. So Cheris, hello. Cheris Rosin, hello. Hell low. Put the hell low. Super Leads, hello. I already say hello, but I'm saying hello twice. Getting carried away. Steve the Goose, hello. And Hugh McMahon, hello. That was tripe again. What was tripe again? You just had some borscht. Borscht? if I'm pronouncing it right. That's tripe, isn't it? It's nice with some garlic in it. It's good for you. Not like some of this modern GMO crap. Right, okay. Yeah, it's funny how they've twisted that, isn't it? Now tripe is supposedly something that's rubbish and no good or useless, all that kind of, connotation. Whereas back in the day, tripe was something that was valued because people realised the content of it was healthy to take in, as long as it's treated properly, cooked properly, etc. True with all foodstuffs in it. It was good for you. Used to be known that it was good for you. So now they've twisted that and convinced people that, oh no, you don't want that stuff. Oh no, it's bad for you. Tripe is the guts, the innards. No, one shouldn't say innards because it doesn't include the organs, but it's mainly the digestive tract that is cleaned out and soaked such that it goes soft. And when it's cooked properly, it is very edible. Yeah, anyway, well, if you like haggis contains a lot of the similar kind of stuff. I like haggis as well. That's good for you as well. And all things in moderation. I'm not suggesting that you eat nothing but those things, but they're certainly not bad for you as modern dietitians might suggest, or modern experts, maybe I should say, because that's what it's really about, isn't it? The experts. So let's stop waffling on about old foodstuffs compared to modern rubbish. It's tripe, it's modern rubbish. If it was modern tripe, it would more likely be rubbish. It'd be full of GMOs and made out of pink sludge. Anyway, yeah, get back to it. The title this week, it has been an interesting weekend here in the UK, so you may have guessed from that interesting weekend why I've titled this week's episode as Maysday. Taking that well-known tradition, I thought about digging into that, of why people use the word Mayday as a call for help. It's an emergency signal to call for help. You shout Mayday, Mayday, SOS. These are the kind of things that send out as a standard call signal over radio communications, frequency communications. Why Mayday? Interesting possible connections deeper down in the rabbit hole there. But I thought, no, I don't want to go chasing off on etymology again. I wanted to just talk about what's starkly in the face at the moment here in the UK. And I'm going to talk primarily from a UK point of view about all this stuff, but really this is interwoven into the geopolitical situation as it's going at the moment, which I will mention a little bit. But like I said, this is about treason May and what's going on at the moment here in the UK. Treason May in the UK. Instead of anarchy in the UK, it's treason May in the UK. Maybe we'll do a punk song about it. Maybe we need to get McLaren to write it for us and do all the production and promotion so that we can be corporatized. Anyway, another digression. Yeah, Maysday. So hopefully people got that connection of Theresa May and Mayday. And she's putting out an emergency signal because it's under threat. We've talked about this for quite a while here. I know we sort of talked about it a bit. I've sort of gone around the subject and many times in one way or another on this show, on these broadcasts, but also on the Wednesday night on the Reality Chat show, which is on the Reality Chat channel on the Reality Chat show. We've talked about this quite often. It seemed, shout out to Steve as well. I was listening on Saturday to his show, and there was the one bit he was talking about using the internet medium to sort of look at all the stuff that's going on, so you can, people looking for the information to try and figure out what's going on in the big chaos of the world. And it did make me think that a lot of what goes on in this environment. The media in general, the news organizations and the corporate media are really the formatted, the systems version of that kind of methodology, which gives them that third man ability. They're in the position of the third party, which means they can then assess the information and manipulate it before they pass it on to you. But in terms of, for a lot of the general populace, when you come to this technology, this internet medium, and you start making use of it in that kind of way, where you're looking for information, you're trying to piece things together to figure out a picture of what's going on with whatever particular thing it is you're looking at, it becomes a little bit like technomancy, which is, I'm not sure if that's a word that's actually in the English dictionary. I never thought to look it up. Dictionary's up on the shelf. It might be. They might have caught up with it by now, but I know it's in the lexicon of the English language through various means, through computer games and other games. I've seen it in the past through role-playing games and that kind of paper and pencil gaming like used to be done back in the day before the dinosaurs. But that word, it just represents the use of technology in a mystical way, or accessing mystical information, revealed information via technology. So it's difficult to pin down the exact process in a scientific manner. It's difficult to pin down the exact process that actually reveals the information. But to find the information, you're utilizing technology to actually do the finding. So it becomes a little bit like technomancy. Mancy means a sort of divination and incantating, well, not incanting, but more divining, divination, the use of a medium, which in classic divination would be things like the tarot cards or the runes or bones or tea leaves. You know, you can use anything for divination. Tau sticks, you know, they're divination. But performing the same kind of thing, but using technology. You're accessing things where it may not necessarily be possible to show scientifically the progression or links from one thing to the next. You're not strictly speaking making a non sequitur. You're not making a leap of logic necessarily to go from one to the next. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm just trying to describe the idea, the concept of technomancy. You're not making non sequitur leaps of logic, but it is scientifically not possible to show the mechanics of the correlation between two things that you can see are connected together for some reason. Think of it as a little bit like when people say things go viral. Why do they go viral? Truly organically viral. You know, this is not something that's getting promoted by a corporate system or a brand marketing campaign or anything like that. It's just something that people just seem to catch on to. And maybe the popularity of it simply explains it, that it's, you know, like the trope or the meme, it just gets passed along because people find it interesting or fun or entertaining or whatever, you know. Like the NPC meme at the moment is making me laugh because it's an oxymoron in a way, because there's a whole load of these people that are primarily on the right of the political left-right bullshit fucking ridiculousness, and they're all coming forward and they're all saying, oh, all those people on the other side of the fence are NPCs, or orange man is bad, all that kind of shit. And it's like, well, when you look at the smorgasbord, you know, well, I'm not Jewish just because I use a Jewish word. You know? You look at the smorgasbord, the kaleidoscope of information streams out there, and you see a whole bunch of people all repeating the same wordage, using the same stylizing and formatting and presentation. So, aren't they the NPCs? So you got all these people on the right going, oh, they're all NPCs, not NPC. So, mate, you're doing the same as that other alt-right guy who's doing the same as that other alt-right guy, that other alt-right. So you're the NPCs. So are you just holding a mirror up to yourself going, oh, look at them repeating everything that everybody else is saying? Yeah. Anyway, forget about the amusing inconsistencies in the political left-right bullshit game, because that's all it is, that left-right bullshit game. And half the time people don't realise the craziness that they're shouting at each other, because all they care about is shouting at each other over that fence. Yes, so maybe that makes sense why I'm saying technomancy, and maybe it might make some sense to why this environment has been deliberately made to seem more chaotic and confusing than it necessarily is in reality. This technology has the ability to make things not confusing and chaotic. A computer and software intrinsically relies on systems of order and consistency. Software doesn't use random code to do what it does. You can't create a chunk of random chaotic code and expect a word processor to come out the other end. It is intrinsically built on systems of order and consistency. You can code in the use of randomness and variability, but the coding defines the boundaries of that randomness or variability. So, strictly speaking, it's not truly random in the sense of when we say chaotic. When you come to look at information on the internet, you're trying to find out the truth about something, and you're looking through and you're searching and you're looking at this, that, and it just seems chaotic. And so, why is that? Yeah. If you go and open a program and look at its actual coding, you'll see how it's all in perfect order. As long as you understand the language that it's been written in, whether C++ or HTML or whatever the particular language is that's been used, as long as you know how to read that language, it all makes sense because it's all in order. And if something is out of place, it causes a bug or an error such that a program will go, oh, there's an error there, go in and check, oh, that bit's in the wrong place, move it to the right place. Oh, it works now because it's in the correct order to sequentially process what it's been told to process. But this environment is being deliberately made to be as chaotic and confusing as possible. And during that chaos and confusion, they're pushing in deliberately their presented icons, their presented thought leaders, culture leaders, brand marketeers, whatever you want to label them as, shills. It's become a power. They've deliberately disempowered that word by oversaturation. They've made it nonsensical because now everybody shouts shill at everything. That brick wall's a shill. Why? Because he's pretending to hold out the world. It's not really doing that. It's just pretending to. It's selling me an illusion. That has been done deliberately. So it creates distrust, lack of any kind of getting together, people working together, because you can't trust anyone. You can't believe anything you see or hear because things can be fake. To shout out to Jeff C, who was talking about the modern software ability to create video imagery and audio files. And the example he used isn't exactly like, top notch. You can tell just about that it is some kind of manipulation. You can certainly tell by the audio because it didn't sound like it was a clip of Obama. But anyway, stuff can be very readily faked and misrepresented, and false information, misinformation, misdirections can spread more rapidly when they are supported by a system that actually benefits by making the environment as chaotic as possible. We could then bring in the example of things such as the various psyops that have happened over the past few years. And I mean, genuine psyops that are going on online that are deliberately designed to just mess with people for one reason or another, to benefit one outcome or another. They can have multiple benefits potentially. So things like the flat earth, various others I could go over, but people will argue about whether it is or is not a psyop and whatever. So I'll caveat myself to make you feel better by not collectivizing you into my point of view, or just say, that's my point of view. Doesn't mean I disbelieve in some of the ideas that are talked about. I'm using it as an example of a deliberate effort, a deliberate campaign, organized, funded, enabled, propagated, and spread by the system, because it creates chaos, confusion, stagnation, and argumentation. So, in other words, you expend all your energy on useless shit while they're busy, the controllers are busy getting on with rolling out their plans, rolling out their agendas, setting up the selling of the licenses for 5G frequencies and having all the technology installed in your local area, while you're busy arguing with somebody on the other side of the world on the internet about whether or not planes should fly off the planet because they don't tip their nose down as they're flying. So therefore they must go, straight out into space, obviously. Okay, yeah. That's all. I'll just leave it at that with that kind of, I didn't even have the energy to do a full face palm for that, because it's just like, yeah, right, okay. So all this kind of distraction technique and deliberately muddying the waters and stirring things up with their big wooden spoons, get everybody fighting against each other. And unfortunately, it is usually a natural reaction for a lot of people. I'm not excluding myself from this. It's a natural reaction for a lot of people that they react to a lot of this stuff that's going on, which means you get caught up in this shit one way or another, from one direction or another. Not strictly true for everyone. I don't think it's fair to use that kind of massive generalized collective labeling of saying everyone falls for it. Not everyone does. And there's a lot of bullshitters out there who claim that, I never fell for it. Oh, no, I've been awake since I was 3 years old, mate. I always knew everything about everything ever since I learned to fart in a bucket. Yeah, okay, whatever. Maybe they're telling the truth, but there's a hell of a lot of bullshitters out there who just like to big themselves up for no good reason, because they're still playing an ego game. If they want to be in front, they want to be the one that gets looked up to. They want to be the one that people come along and go, oh, you're so great, oh, great guru, tell us the latest thing you're going to pronounce to us. All the usual kind of shit that happens in the world in general, in this environment. It is propagated to the nth degree, because that's what this environment relies on. The circus game of personalities, the cult of personality, and the mini demographics that can be made. And now there can be somebody to suit everyone. It doesn't matter what your weird little tiny little niche of interest is. Maybe you like anti-clockwise screw fixings. Somebody out there also likes anti-clockwise screw fixings. So they've got a channel all about anti-clockwise screw fixings. So you can go and congregate there and talk about the weird world of screws that go backwards. Talk about the world is flat. It's like, no, mate, did you know that the screws that go backwards? Yeah. You don't do them in by going clockwise. No, you've got to go the other way. It's such a massive conspiracy. It'd bring down the government if anyone knew. Deliberate craziness, confusion, and reduction into smaller and smaller little compartments where you can never, ever potentially create a threat to the status quo, because you're all in your own little bubbles. Preferably, they want that right down to the individual, which is why they're encouraging the whole narcissistic selfie culture mentality, I should say, and things such as VR and other kinds of methods of getting you trapped into your own little world in one way or another. There's something to suit everyone, and if there isn't yet, they'll design it for you in some kind of VR environment. I know I'm going a long way round, but I promise you, like I usually do, it comes back to the topic, and it does connect together. So in this chaos, in this environment of chaos, that's a sort of pointing at a large part of what is going on in this internet environment primarily. But if you look in all media, a lot of this is going on. A lot of the kind of topics, subjects, ideas, information that we've been talking about in this environment for years, and I am saying the collective we here because I know it's not just me, there's many other people doing this, there's many other people that participate, not just me. This kind of genre of information and interest, alternative, truther, awake, conscious, whatever people prefer or want to call it, a lot of the topics have now reached the mainstream. A large portion of it has been appropriated in one way or another by the mainstream. I spoke recently about the fact that now it's become trendy. It's been trendified, this idea of awake, or you are woke. You have been woke, stay woke, all that kind of rhetoric that's been thrown about by the trendy culture setters, culture leaders, thought leaders, etc. It's been appropriated by the system and manipulated into a energyless, non-potential threat to the status quo. Because they're doing, I feel anyway, they're doing very similar to what they did in the 60s. They're taking a lot of core principle ideas and they're twisting them and malforming them in such a way that it just feeds into this selfie culture attitude, this solipsistic, self-obsessed identity politics, gender politics bullshit, which they then label as woke. Stay woke, bro. You're trans-dimensional, transspatial, I should say. Get me words out tonight. So I didn't mention that at the beginning. The other week I was trans-Arnold. This week I'm going to reiterate the reality that I am actually trans-dimensional and transspatial. Yeah, I'm transspatial because I was here, but now I'm there. And I was there, but now I'm here. Because if you think I'm sat still, you've not expanded your consciousness enough. I don't exist in a room that's floating in the middle of a vacuum nowhere that never moves in any direction whatsoever, such that I could say I'm still sat in the same place. I may be sat in the same chair, in the same room, with the same camera, on the same landmass, but all of that has moved since the last time I did this broadcast. So I'm still here, but I'm not here. I'm transspatial. I used to be in that bit of space. Now I'm in this bit of space. So I'm always transspatial. At the same time, my dimensions, and time being one of them in that transspatial equation, my dimensions are somewhat variable. There's a general consistency to them. I've still got, roughly the same shape, but my shape alters just a little bit, moment by moment, day by day. I had a big meal the other day, so my dimensions have slightly altered as my body is processing that, big package of food and taking the nutrients out of it and converting it into waste matter. Well, waste to my body, but useful to other beings. But you get the point. You're transdimensional and transspatial all the time. That's existence. But do I make a big thing about it where I'm a minority and I demand representation and you have to use my pronoun? You must use my pronoun, otherwise I'll sue you. I'll have you sent to prison where you'll get turned into a transgender. They'll give you a free operation to cut your penis off when you're in prison on the NHS. Even if you've killed someone, just go to prison for the murder and then you can have a free sex change. Rare. Double plus good. Rare. Anyway, digressing myself a bit. I was going to mention I'm transdimensional, transspatial. Back to the chaos and confusion in this weird world. And I was going to mention about the fact that, we've spoken on these shows about how some of what's been going on in UK politics, in world politics as well, but like I said, talk about UK stuff tonight. UK politics has been seemingly a deliberate attempt to create chaos. chaos in the political environment, such that people don't know, what's going to happen tomorrow. Is there going to be a Brexit? Is there not going to be a Brexit? Is Boris going to get into power? Chaos and confusion, even certainly within the Conservative Party. I was going to think of a more derogatory word, but no, in the Conservative Party, there's a lot of chaos and confusion and backstabbing and all this kind of stuff going on. To me, it seems deliberate. And at the same time, on the opposite side of that political fence, the opposition, the Jeremy Corbyn Love Party, the JC Loves Everyone Party, there seems to be quite an element of unity amongst them, even though there is some, again, it seems deliberately created and fueled. There seems to be a little bit of dissent, especially amongst some of the people that are concerned about his potential anti-Semitism. All that kind of stuff is bandied around in the public theatre, but most of it just seems like it's deliberately for show. It's all part of this jousting that goes on between the two parties and backbenchers, etc., etc. It's all good political theatre. But the Conservative Party, those that are supposedly in power at the moment, have really been, on this point of chaos. It's all chaos. We don't know what's going to happen. Theresa May keeps making promises and then nothing happens and it just gets crazier and crazier. And that, not so much a reflection of what's going on online. The two are working hand in hand, definitely now. 20 years ago, the internet wasn't really a part of the political environment. It was more like a library in the way it stored information, and people would have little websites, businesses would have websites and whatever, but it wasn't really a political game yet. But that obviously, that built up rapidly once they'd started getting lots more people online. As the population went online, the politics came along with it. Now, the internet is absolutely a political tool. And it's become more of a political tool than it ever was before. It's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. The element where, whether you like it or not, more than likely, the media that you're looking at via some kind of online service is going to have elements of politics woven into it. Some of it will be obvious and upfront. It's a political show about political shit. But even when it's not supposedly about political stuff, there'll still be elements of politics in there. Political programming, agenda programming, narrative, stuff to do with the big agendas that are going on that's beyond the individual political parties as well. But yeah, lots of chaos in the UK at the moment with Theresa May's government. What's left of it now that, a good portion of the cabinet resigned. But they've been rapidly replaced, of course, because you can't have a sitting government without a functional cabinet. So they had to put people in those slots straight away, no matter who it was. So that guy over there, he's got a bit of a weird limp and he smells a bit funky, but no, don't matter. Get him in there, give him a position, get him in the secretary position. That's how chaotic it's become for Theresa May's supposedly sitting government. And on the back of that, over the weekend, I've got to screen share this story because I just saw this was a major part of what inspired me to rant about this kind of stuff tonight, because hopefully I can expand beyond. Hopefully I'll be able to help people see beyond the headline and the deliberate. Sorry, I was just trying to find my chat room box again. Right, so I can see both, see what's going on. Hopefully the screen share is working all right. Yeah, it looks like it is. Cool. But expand a little bit beyond just the headline and the knee-jerk reaction. Like I said, they want people to react, not think through the potential context and consequences, etc. No, just react. But hopefully help people see how this winds into an agenda of chaos, such that it serves the purpose of the status quo of the establishment. Do you think this guy, do you think he gives a fuck which political face is sitting on the supposed seat of power, whether it's Corbyn or Theresa May? Maybe he fancies Theresa May. He looks like he might be into that kind of school mistress stuff, you know, with whips and stuff like that, you know. But other than that, no, forget the video. I don't want to watch the crappy video of her pulling faces. I thought this was quite an appropriate picture as well. Reminded me a lot of Tony Blair's attempt to frighten people by putting armoured personnel carriers at Heathrow. And that's largely the point that I wanted to lead through on this. But this came out on the weekend. Where's the date on it? The 18th. So it was yesterday on the Sunday. And this was after this article was put up after the news about the cabinet and Theresa May's current situation of chaos, and potentially could even get to the stage of a vote of no confidence, which I've mentioned it multiple times now. We've been talking about this shit for years, both on this show and on the reality chat show. So for years, well, certainly since they've been in power and doing all this shit. They've been potentially leading up to this situation deliberately, almost as if Theresa May was put in there as a not so much a fall guy, but the bus driver that would drive the bus off the cliff deliberately. So their government has very purposefully been doing things in such a way that it actively generates more chaos. It creates more disharmony and dissatisfaction. There's a lot of dissing going on. It creates more dissatisfaction with their government deliberately. They want the people to be agitated. They want the general populace to get pissed off. They want you to feel the pressure, both psychologically and financially. You know, so you get this constant psychological reinforcement from the output from the media, talking about how it's chaotic, and, you know, things like Bojo Johnson, you know, Boris Johnson's stupid stuff that he does. And it's like, oh, look at him, you know, isn't he ridiculous? And Jeremy Corbyn, it's like, oh, look at him, and he's visiting the graves of terrorists. Ooh. And all this deliberate reinforcement, psychological reinforcement. Meanwhile, for the majority of people in the country, you're also suffering that financial constraint or financial pressure. The place you're living in is getting harder to, you know, provide for all the bills and stuff like that. Your general community environment is getting harder. Austerity is biting down on everyone, even though there's green shoots. You know, we're supposed to be in recovery, but there's no end to austerity. We're supposed to be in recovery, but they can't see there being an end to austerity. It doesn't make a lot of sense, really, does it? Permanent austerity equals green shoots. Ignorance is strength, maybe. But my point in being, they've been deliberately for certainly the past few years, more likely I'd say since Cameron was in power, they've been deliberately pushing towards this create chaos, make it seem like everything is untenable, that the whole thing is falling apart. You know, everything is crazy. The world's turned upside down. Dogs living with cats. Ooh. And while they're doing that, that is being directed. That energy, that reactionary energy, is being projected towards, in this case, the Brexit question. That deliberate chaos has also been fueling a natural reaction in the general population towards, I'm deliberately pointing at this because it's one of the icons that represent the kind of the right-leaning political ideology. No matter how you try and sugarcoat it, a right-wing ideological point of view, certainly the further along that bar you go from the centre towards the right, the more towards the right you go, the more this guy comes into focus. Because the right ideology relies on, or maybe I should say, the more you get away from the centre, the more it relies on the use of force to enforce the system that is being projected down from the whoever's in the office that's writing the rules and passing the legislation, etc. You know, because that's what I said, really, it's from the centre towards the edges that this becomes more apparent, because it's true going the other way as well. If you go to the left, eventually it comes to this as well, because it is just a loop. The left-right bullshit. You know, they teach people that it's a left-right thing as if it's like a ruler. And when you go from the center, like a wooden ruler, you know, for measuring things, when you go from the center, you go towards an edge that has a finite end to it. But the reality is it's not like that. It's not a straight line. It's a loop. The further away from that starting central point you get, the more you get towards totalitarianism, extreme authoritarianism, and that relies on the use of force. So either side, either direction you go, the more towards the edges you get, the more it loops back on itself and joins together. The extreme left is exactly the same as the extreme right. They present themselves differently, but they rely on the use of force to dominate those who disagree. So they're identical, they just wear different uniforms. They use the same methodology, the same tactics to enforce their ideology onto the rest of the population. So this article comes out after Theresa May's Brexit chaos cabinet catastrophe. Yeah, I did put in the subtitle. I haven't mentioned that yet. I put in the subtitle. Oh, hang on. Let's stop that bloody video playing. Michael Gove, fuck off and die. Horrible little man. The very fact that he's still in the cabinet says a lot, as far as I'm concerned. The liar gets to remain in the cabinet. You know, they still have him in the cabinet. He's one of the ones that didn't resign because he's one of the agents of chaos who's been pushing out these narratives deliberately to cause a lot of this shit in the nation as a whole, in the country as a whole. Yes, anyway, so in the subtitle, I put all aboard who are going down with the ship. You know, because normally the saying would be all aboard who's going aboard, and then there would be the other saying of all hands went down with the ship. My point with that was that this is a slow motion bus crash, and the people driving the bus are, you know, like Theresa May and Gove and whatever, those people who are in the positions of power where they can supposedly steer that bus, but they're dragging the rest of us along with them. And it's been deliberately created, a deliberately created chaos, because the intention is not to actually carry out what they implied they would carry out with the bait that was the Brexit referendum. The Brexit referendum was a bait deliberately to steer people towards this guy, because they knew that there would never be any Brexit in the way that people expect. The people who actually voted for Brexit, certainly the majority of the people who voted for Brexit, who voted to leave the EU, not everybody, but the majority of them had an expectation that a lot of the problems that they felt were, you know, within the country that are going on at the moment in the country, and, you know, there's lots of different things you could list about that kind of stuff, but they felt that the intention of Brexit was to get us out of the union with Europe such that immigration would be drastically reduced, if not outright stopped. And a lot of the internal problems that were caused by that immigration could be addressed because the inflow, the influx of people would have been severely reduced or stopped. there's some other elements to it as well, to do with things like, you know, the European Bank, the power of Brussels over our supposed nation state. You know, those elements were there as well. But I think you'll find the majority of people were more concerned about that question of immigration and people coming into the country that were potentially, you know, ex-terrorists or members of some group like ISIS or Al Qaeda, because the media has very happily repeatedly pumped that bullshit into the public's consciousness for the past several years. Really, 17 years, maybe a little bit more than that. They have been pumping that shit into people's heads on a daily basis. Don't forget Al Qaeda. Don't forget ISIS. They could be under your bed. They're coming to get you. They're coming to get you. The barbarians at the gates. What do you need when there's barbarians at the gates? You need guys like this with weapons who just follow orders without thinking. Who just shoot who they're told to shoot. I'm sure loads of people who are in the forces currently or have been in the forces might protest at me generalising in that way. You know, as an individual, they'll turn around and say, "Oh no, I can think for myself, mate. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that." That might be true for you. That may have been true. You can't say 100% until you're actually in the situation. But the problem is a lot of the armed forces have been deliberately changed and restructured and manipulated in such a way that I think you'll find there's not that very many people like you if you say that you wouldn't just do what you're told. Now there's a lot more people in the armed forces and in the police forces who do just what they're told. Or they actively do it because they enjoy it for some fucked up reason. They get a kick out of what they're doing, or, you know, it makes them feel powerful to have dominance and control over other people and all that kind of psychological element of it. But my main point about me trying to get back on target, stay on target, my main point about pointing at this particular article, I didn't even bother to go and look up who the author was, because a lot of this has probably been deliberately put in front of them in the same way as other recent stories about the military that the Daily Mail has carried and other news outlets have carried. They're you know, stories that are given to them by the establishment to disseminate to the public. Where's my control room? Sorry, I had to mute myself for a second there so I could get rid of that frog. Yeah, we'll have no frogs here. This is a local country for local people. Yeah, so my point being, we're pointing at this article in particular. A lot of the chaos and a lot of the problems that have been created, I'm not saying there are zero problems at all. That's a common fallacy that is propagated by some people out there to fuel the narrative, or to keep fueling the narrative that, you know, the immigrants are the only thing we've got to worry about. They're the cause of all our problems and woes in the world, so you just need to focus on them. You know, that's the rhetoric, that's the narrative. They want people to hate the immigrants and to blame them for everything. That doesn't mean, I'm not trying to say that they are completely innocent. Just like every other demographic of people in this world, some of them are bad. Some of them, more than likely, are agents of whatever particular group. You know, pick the group like Al Qaeda or whatever. Yeah, some of them probably are either ex-members or active members. Some of them, more than likely, do have bad intent. They have malicious intent. They plan to do this, that, or the other, whatever. Yeah, some of them probably do. But it's a sum. It's a percentage. It's a number out of that whole demographic. It's not all of the people. It's not every immigrant. So they extended it beyond just the terrorist label, and they added the sort of overarching catch-all brush by blaming it completely on their religious belief. So now it doesn't matter whether they're a member of Al-Qaeda or not, mate. They're just Muslims. So that's it, full stop. Automatically, they're bad guy because they're not a religion that I am. They're different to me, therefore bad guy. Yeah, and it's done in such a way that it counts for every demographic of intellectual and knowledge base. So if you don't know a lot about the world in general, they've got a particular target to point you at. And even if you think you know a fair bit about how the world works, they've got a particular target they'll point you at. The intelligentsia has been very well established for many decades now, and they have a tight control over the academic body and the ideas and points of view that are allowed to be accepted. Yeah, allowed to be accepted. So they have been, this is where I could, again, go on a divergence and talk about the Kalergi plan and stuff like that and point people to some of the information about that. But that would add yet more potential time to me rambling about this stuff. And I wanted to primarily get on with just the main point about this kindling, because that's what this is. This article is kindling on a fire to potentially be sparked. Yeah, if you don't know about it, please go and look it up, the Kalergi plan. There's other things that connect into that as well, like the Oded-Yinon plan, if I'm pronouncing it right. And then you've got things that connect into the UN as well, and other European agendas that tie in with the EU, etc., etc. But to put it simply so that I can keep moving, the Kalergi plan relied on the use of mass immigration of peoples from nations, from countries that were culturally radically different from each other, so that it would cause as much friction as possible. It was also compounded by the reality that if you pour large numbers of people into an area, into a community, the standard of living with that community will guaranteed drop, because every community has a resource base that it relies on to do its thing, to have its existence. So if you put more mouths to feed, more people to visit healthcare, more people to use roads, more people to use shops, etc., 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 the needs that fuel that community get stretched further and further and further. Therefore, each individual within that community gets less and less and less. A reduction in standard of living. That deliberately created situation causes friction between peoples. And when at the same time you use your media, both overt, as in directly on the TV, spoken plainly in front of people, but you also use it subtly, where there is this dissemination of cultural media that is encouraged, where it exacerbates those kind of differences. It doesn't attempt to bring people together, using some cheesy cliched way of saying it, but instead it just expounds upon the differences between people and makes claims such as, oh, well, if somebody comes from such and such part of the world or such and such ethnic group, that means they're automatically dumb. If you grow up within a certain ethnic group, you're automatically stupid. And again, caveat myself to sate the people on the right who get triggered by this kind of stuff, but I'm not saying that there is no difference between people's abilities, both mentally and physically, psychologically and emotionally, etc., dependent on their culture, their environment, their upbringing. All these things have epigenetically a massive influence on who we are and how we operate, how we are capable within the environments we live in. Yes, that's a true reality, but that doesn't mean you should take things and turn them into stereotypes, which, as they get diluted, when you move information from individuals to groups and then out to the mass in general, they go through a dilution process. The reason popularism is popularism as a political ideology. The reason I mention popularism is because it connects to Trump and a lot of the other figures that are now rising to power around the world. This is not just the UK, this is around the world. More and more right-wing leaning political faces are gaining power. That is a natural reaction of the populace who are getting fed up with the extreme left-leaning, chaotic situation that is being created in their countries. So they're I say naturally, but it's not truly naturally. Their reaction is natural, but that reaction is being deliberately engendered. Like a Pavlovian dog, they're being shown that, they can hear the bell tinkling and they're salivating. They hear the rhetoric of, any of these people who come from outside their country are automatically enemies. Everything they do, they're bad people. Even the things they believe in make them evil. That makes people naturally go the other direction. So they go towards the right because the right make claims of how they would control this influx. They would stop the flow of people coming into the country. This is complete bullshit, of course. They won't fucking change anything. But before I digress myself any further, this deliberate agitation of the general living standards of the people within the nation make them go towards the right, makes them seek a somebody like Orange Man is bad, somebody like Trump who tells them exactly what they want to hear in very simplistic terms. And if you put something in the most simplistic manner possible, it reaches more and more people because you bridge further over the gaps of intellectual ability and knowledge base. So if you say something really, really simply, even a child can understand it, that means a vast majority of your population will understand it because your population has a varying degree of intelligence and cognitive ability. So you want to reach lots and lots of people, you have to say things in very simplistic ways. So popularism relies on making things sound really, really simple, even when they're not. Even when the reality of it is that if you treat this thing in such a simplistic manner, the whole thing is going to fucking blow up in your face, mate. Oh, no, it's as simple as this. It's as simple as it. That's the danger of popularism and that kind of simplistic explanation or placating of the crowd. The rise of popularism is a right-wing phenomenon. And it is a natural reaction of people to their general living standards going down and them feeling under threat. And they feel under threat because they're constantly told they're under threat because people keep telling them that there's crazy people out there coming to get them. And any minute now, you could be blown up. Any minute now, your school could suffer a school shooting and your children could be shot dead by some crazy person who's been radicalized by weird shit on the internet. So it's a natural reaction. People go towards the right. Towards the right, the people on that kind of ideology are quite okay with the idea of the use of force. In the last several months, I've seen the increase in that kind of rhetoric in the general commentary of people, both under videos on YouTube, but under newspaper articles like this one. The kind of rhetoric where you'll probably see it under this article, actually, I never thought to look, but things like, oh yeah, we could do with the troops on the street so they can shoot the criminals. People are beginning to demand a police state. And that is exactly the result that they wanted. The Kalergi plan, it was not something that was an idea that was meant to take place over 1 or 2 years and that's it, job done, blah, blah, blah. No, this was a long agenda. It was a longitudinal plan. It wasn't meant to happen overnight. It was something that was, part of the plan was that it would take a while to take effect. But they knew that eventually it would have this kind of effect. People would become so frustrated, so agitated, a lot of people would die, as has been true here in the UK as the supposed austerity solution. has ground away at people's standard of living and their situation in life. Lots of people have died in one way or another, either from illness or committing suicide, or end up living on the street and, freeze to death during the winter. Yeah, people do die, but the general status quo is not really concerned with the rubble that remains after the chaos has caused the devastation, because that devastation is required so that they can build the new paradigm on top of that rubble. They'll use that rubble as foundation. Future generations will look back at this time, and dependent on how this whole situation goes, I speak from the potential worst point of view, maybe not necessarily the worst, but a bad point of view. Future generations will look back at this time and think, oh, those crazy people, those dinosaurs that tried to close the borders of the country and prevent people. We wouldn't be the amazing mixed transgender, transcultural, trans-species things that we are now if they had gotten away with closing the borders. Future generations will not be so much concerned about which political party was in power, because either political party was deliberately geared in one way or another towards this agenda. At the moment, it's looking more and more like this methodology of chaos is going to end up resulting in a failure of Parliament to be able to hold a seat. So there'll be a vote of no confidence in Theresa May, in the Prime Minister. She could get replaced, which, they're probably desperately trying to find someone that could step into that situation. But it's also highly probable that the government will collapse and they'll have to call a general election. If they call a general election, pretty much guaranteed Jeremy Corbyn will get in and he'll just stop Brexit full stop. They know that that's the kind of result that's more likely coming along. So they put this article out to get a knee-jerk reaction out of the people that are primarily on the right. Because they want people in the street. They want people getting angry and fighting with each other, because then this will be justified. They want people demanding that the troops are in the street so they can shoot the criminals. Well, that's very true. What's happened to the Daily Mail? They're now an utter disgrace. Well, it's mostly true, mate. They've always been a fucking utter disgrace, but at least you catch it on. Yeah. You, the insignificant public, will accept and enjoy the decisions we make, or we will shoot you down like a rabid dog in the street. Yeah, exactly. I'm sure in those comments somewhere you'll find some people saying how great it is if the troops were on the street. But anyway, enough of looking at that Daily Fail crap. I apologise if you had to stare at the crap on the right-hand side as well. I never thought to cover it up before. I was screen sharing it, because that right-hand column is deliberately designed to mess with you while you're trying to look at the article. Yeah, they deliberately put stuff in there so it drags your mind away in one way or another. So, yes, anyway, that article came out over the weekend. I think it's deliberately there to try and get a knee-jerk reaction out of people. It's there to fuel that division between the one side and the other, splitting the country in half, in the same way as Trump's bullshit about the wall was meant to do the same thing for the Americans. I know this is a little bit sort of cheesy mentioning this now, but while I was listening to Steve's show, he's talking about, people who have cleverness, or the use of cleverness, being clever. And it occurred to me that, clever is very close to the word cleaver. And one of the things that clever people do, because clever is not necessarily the same as intelligence, and it's certainly not the same as wisdom, but cleverness is like quick-wittedness in such a way that you can see a way of benefiting. You can see a way of getting through something, or you've got that kind of fast calculating ability, so that if you hear a couple of numbers that people are saying to each other, you think, oh, that means if I step in here and offer to do it for this, I'll make this much profit. It's that kind of quick-wittedness, like a salesman who's good at his sales technique would be clever. He's clever with his sales technique. He's good at looking for the opportunities to make something out of what he's trying to sell. But my point being clever and cleaver, like a meat cleaver, something to divide things. And one of the primary things that the system does is create division so that it can propagate from the conflict that is created between the two sides. So the clever wield the cleaver. The ones that certainly think they're clever are the ones there with that cleaver trying to create divisions between people, between demographics, between groups, between individuals, because then they can potentially profit. Once people are split, there is that middle ground where you can bring in the third man element, the third man principle, so they can start generating a profit in one way or another. In this case, it's political profit, political agenda profit. This stuff is maybe not very visible or observable if you're only looking in a short time span point of view. A lot of the general public, I was almost going to say most, but I don't think it's necessarily true that it's most, but a good portion of the general public don't pay attention over the longer scale. They pay attention to what's next. What am I doing tomorrow? What time have I got to be in work? When do I need to go shopping? When do I need to pay the bills? Kind of day-to-day living is often quite short term. Maybe they're thinking far enough ahead to when they're planning the next holiday, or at the moment, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to mention it, but maybe they're thinking about what they're doing over Christmas. Yeah. No, it's going to start soon, folks. It's Black Friday this week, so all that stuff's going to start soon. But they're not necessarily looking at those longer tracks of time that reveal the methodology that, in its processing, often takes quite a long time to, see a result from, or to create enough of effects such that it's observable. But now this methodology of let's get a whole load of people, inject them into this country, that will cause a drop in the standard of living. It will cause friction. It will cause general discontent. People will be rubbing up against each other in such a way, not in a good way, that it will cause problems, and they will get frustrated with it, and they will get angry about it. And then all you got to do is add a few drops of kindling, like warn them that, some of these people are bad people. They come to get you. They're secretly trying to get you. They're after you. You let that simmer, and eventually all you need is just one little spark, and you can have people reacting in such a way where they will demand, either because they want the fighting stopped, or because they're afraid that they themselves are going to get attacked by these phantom enemies.
Can I make a quick point there, Cookie?
Yes, go on, mate.
I think I've made it before, but I think it bears repeating. Just on that, I think when Trump said he was going to make America great, he was talking about GRATE, the spelling of great, to rub the societal elements against each other, to create this friction.
Yes, mate, definitely. I definitely agree. That's what I banged on about the wall thing. As things have progressed, there hasn't exactly been a lot of progress in a physical sense made about the wall, but in terms of how it's affected the country, the people in the country, psychologically, it's driven a wall in between them. So it doesn't matter if a physical wall ever gets built. He's divided them, and then they're, like you said, they're grating up against each other as well as grating against the rest of the world. But it was definitely a method of creating divisions and then agitating those separations. Even though he presents himself in that popularist fashion and he says things that a lot of people love. You know, they think it's great what he says, but oftentimes it's so simplistic that it's almost, well, not almost, sometimes it is nonsensical. Often it's almost nonsensical, and then occasionally it's absolutely, totally fucking nonsensical. But that's why I was mentioning the cleaver thing. Yeah? The connections, if people want to dive deep down the rabbit hole, you know, the connections to that principle of the divide, the divide or divide, the David, creating that split to get the two sides, the Freemasonic principle of the two pillars. There is, in fact, the third pillar, the third man, that third principle, but primarily, you know, the duality of creating two sides so that you can, through agitation, you can generate something out of that situation that, if you're clever, you can then profit from. That profit is not necessarily financial. It could be some other kind of gain for you. And for those controllers, the main gain that they're after is dominance of power. That was one other element that mentions. Often people think that a lot of this is driven purely by money. But when you start to see the international, the geopolitical, the global scale effects of a lot of this, there's stuff that's going on, a lot of it leading towards some of the bigger agenda narratives, but it goes far beyond money. This is not about money. People lower down the pyramid are baited with money. They're persuaded or encouraged to follow the compartmentalized pathways by the people up at the top offering them money. For the people up at the top,
money, Cookie,
money is
above
infinite.
Above money, you've got societal change. Have you not? You know.
Yeah.
That's the goal. You know.
Well, one of the, I say one of, because often I have multiple ideas in my head before I end up picking a title. But one of the titles I thought of using tonight was going to be Millennial Profit, but profit spelt as in financial profit. You know, and I wanted to ask the question. This does very loosely link into some of the stuff I've been ranting tonight, but I was wanting to ask the question, what do you do when you've got big enough that money becomes inconsequential to you? What then is your, you know, what's your purpose that you're pursuing in life? Because for most of the people, you know, from my point of view, when you live down at the lower part of the pyramid, money can be, to a large degree, certainly for a lot of people in that kind of situation, money is a driver. Yeah, it gives you purpose. You got to get the next chunk of money so that you can buy food or support your family or go on holiday. Yeah, and it's used as a fuel to keep people going in a certain direction. But for those who get to a position, either through their own business or through work or whatever, or just luck, or it's handed to them, however they come across it, for those that get large amounts of money, what then do you do? Because at that point, your ability to generate enough money to sustain yourself becomes that completely mute question, because you've got so much money that you can easily, infinitely generate the resources you need to sustain yourself. So if that's the case, what then is the purpose? What's driving you? It's beyond money. Yeah. And the reason I wanted to raise that point is because often, you know, the banks get the blame for a lot of stuff. But I think the misconception here is that people are doing what they're doing because they're pursuing money. They're not pursuing money. They're pursuing power and control. They use money to persuade you to go along with what they're doing, but they have the ability to issue an infinite amount of money. So they themselves are not doing it for money. And the reason I wanted to stress that point is it changes people's thinking when they get that realization. When you can think beyond your own difficulties of, I need... Gary, why are you sticking that up on the screen now while I'm saying this stuff? And stop trying to show titties. But if they can think beyond their own life experience of, well, I need to get money, mate, so that's the reality of the world, money makes the world go round, all that kind of shit. If they can think beyond that, I feel it helps people realise that the motivations of the people carrying out a lot of these agendas and writing these narratives that we all get dragged along by are not thinking from that point of view of money, of financial profit. You know, you've got to try and think the
they're
way
thinking about societal change, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And in order to create that, you need a thesis, antithesis, and a synthesis in order to take a society to where they want to be. That's why they're showing the division in society.
Yeah.
I think that video shows, though, sometimes that, you know, they push the right-wing thing a little bit too much in Spain. And the Femen, yeah, normally I'm against them. I think they're a total bunch of idiots. But on this occasion, you know, they got the response they wanted. Yeah, because normally they'll go into a church and all the priests are like, oh, what can we do? What can we do? But these fascists, these Spanish fascists, man, they went out in the streets, they dragged them to the ground, started kicking them and that, yeah? I mean, it was really ugly. That was like yesterday.
Put it up again, mate, while you're explaining it. I was only, you know, it just caught me off guard a bit that you'd put it up on the main screen while I was yakking, that was all. And it was like...
So this was a rally. This is Franco's birthday, and they're all celebrating Franco's birthday, yeah? And these women, yeah, here they are. This is it, yeah?
I hope that's not them.
Oh, they just went right into the middle of this lot. And, you know, fascist shame, legalised fascism, here they are. Huge titties, man, on that one. On Twitter, they were, you know, they weren't censored. Look at that, man, really fucking kicking the boot in you. Now, normally, they're idiots, but on this occasion, I think they've really showed these right up for what they are, you know, because they will stand around talking about honour and all the rest of it. But
see, but this still serves the purpose of fueling the narrative towards that right-wing ideology.
Yeah,
because for right-wing people, they'll look at that and think, oh yeah, they get what they deserve. They're fucking idiots doing that. And for the left, they'll turn around and go, oh, look, they've martyred themselves by being beaten. The tyranny has revealed itself by the fact that these people started beating on them. So it just keeps fueling that fucking circus, mate.
Well, yeah, but you remember, like in Germany, they kept fueling that, you know, building both sides against each other. But I think this might put a stop to any moderate people wanting to go towards this, yeah? It's, you know, there's a big thing, you know, it's time to leave that past behind, yeah? And yeah, I think this is the kind of thing that does it, yeah? It will keep these far right-wing numbers down, yeah? It might look like they've got a lot of people, and they invoke the Catalan independence thing, you know, if you don't like Catalan independence, you've got to be nationalist. Well, this is what it means to be nationalist. So a lot of people are going to turn their back on this now. You see what I mean? So, you know, yeah, it was a very controlled thing, pushing this right-wing anti-Catalan independence, pro-Spanish honour. And then this turns up, yeah, and just blows the fucking mask away on what they actually are. Yeah? What they're actually about.
And like you say, you could easily point at that and say that the people who are attacking them, again, they're only a percentage of all the people that are there.
Yeah. It shows that simplification isn't going to work in every single country, you know, because of because of history, yeah, which is another thing that the right wing talk about, you know, save our culture, save our history. Well, you know, I've said it before, you know, where people were properly educated in socialist values back in the 60s and 70s, they're wised up, yeah. They're not just swallowing and shouting the slogans for the transgender and everything, you know. They learned about the deeper issues long ago. Corporate takeover and government controlling things, not so good. Yeah, and they're the harder places to reprogram.
Well, there's plenty of places like that in the UK where you could say people are harder to program because they are just, you know, in their own mindset within their local community or their area. Yeah, there are some very distinct cultural differences between different parts of the UK. Not always necessarily apparent to most people, to outsiders, to non-UK residents. But
It was interesting on that Russell Brand video as well earlier on. Yeah, he does a little 3-minute video, and he's kind of organically growing his persona into this super guru. But at the end of it, what is it he says? He says, without nationalism, there wouldn't be any nations. And I thought, no. You got that round the wrong way. Yeah, without nations, there wouldn't be nationalism. But, the way he puts it, yeah, and twists it around like that, that's very clever, yeah? Without nationalism, there wouldn't be nations. So let's get rid of nations. Yeah,
I'd say as well, there's a deliberate manipulation of definition and expectation as well. Because he's suggesting that nationalism and the nation state are the same as people's attitudes towards where they live and the people themselves that occupy that landmass. He's mixing it all up. He's not clearly explaining the differences between nation state, nationhood, country, culture, people, ethnicity. There's so many elements to what he's trying to suggest, but he wants to simplify it into nationalism and nation.
Yeah, exactly. Nations arose like historically, not because everyone got together as a group like fascists and says, "I know, let's have a nation because we believe in ourselves." But that's the impression he's trying to give. Yeah. So
I have seen a few people sort of mention this. I've not really listened in much or looked in any further, but I know I've heard people talking recently about the difference between patriotism and nationalism. And I think some of that you could say adds in. That's why, as well, I'm pointing out the fact that he's not really, digging into the words. He's using an oversimplification that makes it more problematic, not helpful.
yeah, it's basically trying to avoid the thing that we did all come from different cultures, and now our cultural history is a rich thing that we should hold on to. That's what he's got to avoid. Yeah,
the nation state is a legalese entity, a non-existent conceptual entity that has grown over the top of us like a parasite. We didn't, like you said earlier, a bunch of people from the area that we now call England, all the people who lived in England didn't get together and say, "Hey, folks, I tell you what, let's create this nation-state thing called England. We'll write it on a bit of paper and say anything within this boundary is England." We didn't do that. Certain individuals conspired to lead towards a situation where a nation-state entity was created and ratified and used as some kind of legislative jurisdiction for various shit. But the people didn't get together and say, "Hey, everyone, let's create our own nation state."
Yeah, but like I said, getting rid of
it's like, let's create our own slavery, isn't it?
Yeah. Hey, everyone, let's get together and we'll choose 1 out of 1,000 people who gets to sit on a special chair and tell us all what to do.
Whoopie-doo. But power and control, you mentioned, world domination. That's what it really leads to, isn't it? If we've got enough money and control and power and all the rest of it, just controlling everything and everybody. And that's what they're aiming to do. That's what they're on their path to do, to control us all by spying on us, collecting all our information, knowing exactly where we are at all times, that kind of stuff. It's all part of their paranoid, power-controlled world domination fuck-up, which is what they're trying to, achieve here. And we're just all caught up in the building of it. As it gets more technocratic as it goes forward, and the chaos with Mayday, Mayday, it's all imploding as we speak. Just more chaos and fear to keep that distraction going, if you like, while they continually build this thing. And we're quite happy to give them our information and get our smart devices and our Alexas in our living rooms and, get used to it, get used to the AI and the smart grid and the 5G and the, did you mention the fires, the fires in California,
No, I hadn't,
the burning out of the people up there, the burning of properties, which is, if you've seen some of the pictures and the photographs and things, they look very similar to, like what I saw in 9/11 with the cars all burnt out and stuff. It looked really weird. Some of that oxidation and sort of interesting how just the properties were burnt out, almost like you were saying before, someone had just come up with a flamethrower and the trees are all untouched, and things like this. It just doesn't look right. And cars are turned upside down as well. They're trying to call it a firenado. A firenado, for fuck's sake. But, again, it's just interesting how this whole agenda's been, rolled out. And like I say, it's just total control of us and what we're doing here. And even how many times we, open our fridge door, they want to know. It's amazing, isn't it? The stuff they need to know, the stuff they have to know, the stuff that they need to feed into their data banks and crunch it and come up with some kind of other weird shit to control you with, or, whatever.
Well, but the person that come up with that, remember, probably got a pay rise, and promotion. Yeah. I mean, you've got these kids coming out of college, and they're working in these tech companies. I know. Every time somebody opens their fridge, the guy probably got promotion. These are the useful idiots.
And that's if you can afford any food to go in your fridge, because I just put down food banks before, as you were talking about, the government and how wonderful it all supposedly is and how well everybody's doing. No, there's food banks, austerity, and and that as well. So don't know what that noise was.
Your new fridge is going to know when you last took a shit. It's going to, your new smart fridge, but it's going to cost you that much. You're not going to afford food to be able to put in it.
Mm-hmm. You'll be given rations that will be delivered to your front door by a drone.
Mm-hmm. And remember,
spacey insects.
Yeah. A story about that I'm going to mention Wednesday. I've seen selling them in Sainsbury's, apparently. New spicy insects for sale.
Yeah. So it begins.
Lovely.
Soylent Brown will probably be next.
Yeah.
But to try and sort of, this is something that could be potentially a massive long explanation, so I'll try and keep it as simple as possible, or as short as possible anyway. In terms of like, where is it going to? What's the end goal agenda kind of thing? It's back to that single world system, a technocratic system. I know many people say I'm crazy because I talk about the technocracy and whatever, and they think I'm just scared of washing machines. And the easy answer is they're fucking idiots. Sorry, it's as simple as that. I've tried to say it in many other different ways. I've tried to be nice about it. I've tried to help them see what I feel they're missing to connect the dots of that realization. But when it comes down to it, if they don't see the same thing, I say fair enough. Yeah, but I'll just say they're fucking idiots if they can't see this, because it's so fucking obvious. You'd have to be an idiot to not be able to see it. But they want a system that relies on technology to increase efficiency, because for them, for the body of the pyramid, not those who sit on top, but for the body of the pyramid, like we was talking about earlier, they're driven by money, the need for money to perpetuate their running of the hamster wheel within the big hamster wheel of society. So they want money. So if you're more efficient, you get greater profits. So there is this inexorable drive towards efficiency. So whether you like it or not, things are going to get technologically more efficient, because efficiency equals profit. So the big corporations, the big international corporations, will get better and better at generating profit for themselves and their shareholders, which means their efficiency will go up and up. That rise and drive of efficiency will only be possible thanks to technology and automated systems. In other words, humans get pushed out because you're not capable of keeping up with the levels of efficiency that are required to keep the profit growing, because that's what their business models rely on, perpetual infinite growth. So at some stage, inexorably, you will be dragged towards an environment where everything that possibly can be automated and have technology added to it such that it gets added into the system, so the system can calculate more efficient ways of doing everything. This is why they want the Internet of Things. It's not just about control. It's not just about knowing everything you're doing. They need that data so that they can plug it into their system, so they can calculate more efficient ways to do whatever, more efficient ways to spread energy, more efficient ways to move resources around, and those resources include you. So they want more
Continual improvement.
Yes, right. Continual improvement. They want more ways of knowing what's going on in your head and controlling what you do, what you think, what you say, what you participate in, what you spend your energy on, because that then enables them to calculate that efficiency.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned right near the beginning when I said computer programs don't utilize chaos. Yeah, they might use it as a sub-function to calculate a certain variable, but then it gets brought back in to get plugged into an ordered system.
Fuzzy logic.
Yes, right.
For example.
Yeah, fuzzy logic. We are the fuzz. Yeah, in their fuzzy logic, we are the fuzz. So for them, the most efficient way to do everything is to get rid of the fuzz. So they will inexorably, whether they choose to do it or not, the very impetus of the profit motive will drive it towards that. So at some stage in the future, everything's going to be technologically automated. And there's some people out there, there's some groups out there, there's some that go back for a very long time that could see this inevitability of technology, and they're actually driving towards it because, as far as they're concerned, they're sat on the top of the crest of that wave. They're surfing the crest of that wave. You are all the little slave peons that are driving the wheels of the machine that makes it go forwards, and they're surfing the top of it. And they'll get to land where they choose to land, and they will build an environment that will perpetuate their status quo. Meanwhile, you will be subject to this continuously degrading standard of living because you're too fuzzy for the system to amalgamate you and make you efficient. So instead, it just accounts for you in a way that may eventually end up not accounting for you.
Yeah, like a group of very, very rich individuals. Bill Gates popped in my head there when you were talking. You said that, that's exactly what these kind of guys do. Richard Branson types, over the years, these entrepreneurial ones who they get in all NGOs and they get involved in everything, and these are the ones who want the control and the domination side of it. They want to be the kings and the the legends and the legacies and the the ones that are remembered for the good things, and all that bullshit.
But that, to link it into what I was talking about tonight and the main point, the main story in question, whatever. To get us to that world environment, it's got to be a singular world system. The end goal, the most efficient system would be a one world system. They know, they figured this out a long time ago. So they've been working towards this one world single system, a single culture, a single financial system, a single distribution and logistics system to move resources and whatever around. Yeah. Us being independent, as in Brexit, as in the country, when I say us, the country, the UK being independent from the Union, is going an opposite direction to that end goal. The EU was a stepping stone. The European Union was a stepping stone to get the whole of Europe into a singular nation, which can then be added in as a block to the UN agenda to make the global nation. Yeah. If you look up the UN agendas like 21 and 2030, and you look up the global map of their projected future, where I say projected futures, the way they categorize the global zones. You know, the Europe is considered a singular zone. So they want us to keep progressing along this narrative towards a one world system, which means they don't want countries to separate from the unions. Oh, sorry, Gary, I didn't see you say night. Good night, Gary. Thanks for joining.
Gary.
But for them, countries going independent is working against that general goal of getting federated groups together. You know, they begin with Europe. When the countries of Europe are happy, and eventually they stop calling themselves individual countries, and instead they just call themselves Europa, then Europa gets linked into the bigger global agenda, the UN agenda. But, you know, for many people that might seem backwards to what is actually happening, because we're having Brexit, mate. We voted for Brexit. It's happening. So what you're saying can't be true. It can't be, you know, where we're going. The Brexit is a whole charade to create a justification to swing things back towards the union. This is why, you know, like I said, we've been chatting about this kind of stuff on these shows for a while. The whole situation of, oh, isn't it a surprise that all of a sudden now Theresa May can't figure out what the fuck she's doing? She doesn't know her ass from her elbow, and there's all these resignations, and it could be a hung parliament, and there could be a general election. Oh, what a surprise. Because that's what they wanted to happen. They've got the majority of the population to swing to the right, which means there is then the justification to put troops on the streets. So when there is the general election and Jeremy Corbyn gets in and he says there'll be no Brexit, and all that majority who voted for Brexit get really fucking pissed off, what they're going to be facing up against? Armed police and armed troops. So are you going to achieve reversing the no Brexit? No, you won't, because if you try to, you'll get shot down. So therefore, the no Brexit happens, and you just have to fucking suck it up and accept it. And at the same time, you've now got this new accepted environment of armed forces on your streets.
Send in the dogs.
Yeah.
This is what they do every time.
I thought it was interesting as well that somebody mentioned it a few weeks ago, that they've done a movie of what was that massacre? Now, fucking Peterloo. Yes, thank you. They've done a movie now over the Peterloo massacre, and it struck when I saw that story come up Sunday. I thought, that convenient timing, isn't it? If that movie's going to be coming out soon, and potentially there's going to be troops on the street, you know, is this going to be a little sort of graphic reminder to the public of like, hey, don't try it, mate, because look, we've done it before in the past. We'll kill you if you push us too far. We'll do it. You know, it just seems convenient timing for that. Maybe the producers were just taking advantage of all the Brexit chaos and thought it was a good time to do a movie, but I don't know, mate, you know what I'm like. I get suspicious about coincidences like that.
No, it is interesting. They put things out there and then things happen. I mean, it's like the California fires. I mentioned that video that I haven't actually watched in its entirety yet, and I can't remember the woman's name. We're talking about it back in February.
Deborah Tavares.
Yeah, that's the one. And just speaking about what's exactly happened right now in California, you know, in the last few days, you know, we've seen these there's like a firestorm leaving devastation and stuff. And again, you know, it links into, you know, Stephen saying, I haven't seen it all, but saying about smart meters and things of this nature, which are connected to 5G and, you know, all this new, like you say, this stuff that they're putting in place, which has total control in the sense it can be, you know, it can be weaponized. It can be, you know, 5G is used as a weapon. You know, has been. You just go and look into it. So now they're introducing that sort of technology into the masses.
It's another good example of that simplification as well, because for a lot of people, I know, you know, there is this truth about the technology. The technology can be used as a weapon. It potentially could be used in such a way that it could hurt people, it could confine them so that they could set up in effect like perimeter fences and stuff like that. But I think that's a simplification of how the technology will be used to control people. This is not necessarily talking about physical control of people. It's more the psychological control that they will be able to formulate thanks to the sheer amount of data that they can amass via that 5G network. Yeah, so if they know everything about you, they know all your movements, all your habits, your mannerisms, your desires, your likes, your dislikes, your hopes and dreams, and all that, they know everything about you. They've got a good profile of you. They can create a plan to persuade you that you want what they want you to want. So you won't even know you're being controlled.
Mm-hmm.
They will have so much data available to them that they will be able to come up with ways where they can make you think that it was your own idea, that it's a great fucking idea, and you're doing it despite the man. You're giving a finger to the man, but you're actually doing exactly what they want you to do.
Well, they did it with Trump and Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah.
Exactly what they did.
Well, think about trends like I mentioned, Black Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
People's standard of living is going down. Everybody wants to find a bargain. Everybody likes a good bargain. Now it's got to the stage where now everybody gets in on the Black Friday thing. Now it's reduced to having a scrum with somebody to get the bargain. And some people do that. But at the same time, to me, I look at that situation. I think that's an example of control without the stick. There isn't a policeman or an agent of the state stood behind those people, chasing them into the store with a stick and saying, you must fight the other guy for that cheap TV. Fight, go on, fight, or I'll hit you with a stick. They don't. They've just used subtle methods to convince those people that that's what they should do. And then the people willingly go and start a fight with somebody in a shop because they want a cheap TV.
And say advertising between I'm a celebrity, that tends to get them out, doing some Black Friday shopping.
But that's why I think a lot of people miss that that bigger picture, that more subtle picture of the danger of that technology. And the when they say control, when people talk about control via the 5G tech, like I say, it's not necessarily about the potential for physical control. It's about the level of data that they will be vacuuming up and how they can then implement that data to influence whole demographics of people. Look at the trending on fucking Facebook or on YouTube or on Twitter. That's an example of their manipulation that cause people to go certain directions. Orange man is bad, NPC, meme example, insert here. They've got a whole bunch of people all acting like NPCs because they're all repeating the same meme to each other as if they think it's somehow intellectually effective. It's a tragic comedy. It's like a Greek play. Oh dear. I've ranted a lot and I'm losing my voice now already. Sorry if I've been ranting over the top here.
No, it's been cool. It's been a good show again, as always. So.
And I've missed a fair bit of the chat. Sorry,
everyone in the chat. I've been having a look at it. Yeah, it's been very busy.
I could see it ticking along there. So that's the main thing. People are chatting and there's lots of good stuff posted in there by the looks of it. So
yeah,
that's great. I will, like I always do, I always read back through them later, either tonight or tomorrow. I always read back through it. I know I'm often slow on the text stuff, like comments and that.
It's very hard to read if you're doing a live thing, like when I'm doing on Wednesday. I can't look at it. It's just it's me off. So I just got to get on what I'm getting on with. Look at it later.
Maybe next week I'll do, depending on whether anything happens over the week. But maybe next week could be an opportunity where I've done it before, but could do like where it's just interact with the chat room, rather than doing an episode on some particular topic or whatever. I'll just chat in general and we can chat with people in the chat room as well. But yeah, I'm going to wind it up so I can stop croaking.
Make a cup of tea.
Firing frogs everywhere. Yeah, I can do with a fresh one. Oh, you're buzzing again, Days.
Shit. Sorry, Cookie. It's just that phone, man. So
That's all right.
thanks for hosting, mate.
That's all right. I'm glad you could make it in. I'm glad you got the phone to actually do it and join in this time. I think as well, the friend I was visiting the other week, I think he might have been headed off on his journeys now. So if he is, good luck to you, mate. I hear from you when you land the other end. I'd say thank you to everyone in the chat room. Thanks to everyone who's participating, joining in. Thanks if you're just watching, if you're just lurking and not typing, or you don't have to type in the chat room. But thanks for tuning in and listening in. Thanks for clicking the like button and sharing it if you do. If you're clicking the thumbs down, then fuck you too.
You know what? I looked at that channel before, and that thumbs down, it disappeared. I don't know if that was possible, but it disappeared. It was there.
You can take your vote off.
Oh right, so there you go.
Because I know you can, like, if you click thumbs up or thumbs down, if you click it again, it removes your vote. So people get the opportunity. Yeah, you can change your mind.
So someone changed their mind then when you said it.
Yeah. But yes, thanks again, folks. Thanks for joining us. Tomorrow night, Raconteurs News should be on again. I know they've got another guest, but I didn't see who it was. Wednesday night, we'll be back on the Reality Chat channel.
Yep.
Doing the Reality Chat. I'm sure we'll talk about this stuff again, and maybe a few other bits.
Yes.
And Steve Tagoose will be on Saturday night with the mystery show. And then, I'll be back again next week, hopefully, as far as I know. All things working well. That's it. Thanks again, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Don't believe all the bullshit. And please don't fall for the hype of going in the streets and fighting with the foreigners because they're the enemy at the gates and all that bullshit. Because you will just be feeding into their whole bullshit that was going to bring the police state system down on us even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I know people will have problems with that anyway, but whatever.
Cookie.
All right, cheers, guys. Cheers.